All right, I'll give it 3, 2, 1, go. All right. So this is Dustforce. This is a momentum platformer. The objective of this game is to go around the levels and clean all of the dust as fast as you can. And this category is any percent, all levels, New Game Plus. Essentially, it's the any percent of this game. Instead of collecting all the dust, the runners are just going to race to the end of the level as fast as they can. They don't need to collect all the dust. Yeah, and they'll start with all of the levels unlocked. So you'll see them go into the Nexus after the tutorials, and they'll just go into the levels as fast as they can.
Right, so most of the levels end when you hit or clear a group of enemies that are considered the end trigger to the level. And in this level, you see an interesting way of doing that. In the bottom left, you'll see a meter, and every time you collect dust, that meter will increase. When it reaches 100, it'll fill up, and you can use a super attack, which clears everything in a certain radius. So they're actually going to quickly farm to super by hitting a set of large prisms here, and super the end trigger through the wall. You can see it barely in the top right. It's that group of prisms up there.
There are two types of attacks in this game. There are light attacks and heavy attacks. And the light attacks can only destroy small prisms, and the heavy attacks can only destroy large prisms.
Right.
Other enemies in this game have health. The light attacks do 1 damage, and the heavy attacks do 3.
Right.
So the major thing introduced in this level is going to be the types of boosting. There are 2 main types. The first one is the easiest, is slope boosting. Whenever you hit a surface at the correct angle with enough velocity, you'll get all your vertical speed transferred into horizontal speed. And that's what they're doing here. But you'll also see them do another type of boosting where even just from flat ground, they'll jump a couple times, and because the angle they get when they down dash into the floor is good enough, they'll get speed from that too, even without a slope.
Right, it's not a mechanic that's exclusive to slopes, it's for any surface. So even walls and ceilings you can gain boost off of by hitting them at the right angle.
Yeah, and they can also maintain their speed by timing dashes. It's called the dash rhythm, and so they want to time their dashes as tightly as they can.
Yeah, so in this game, when you dash, you get instantly put at max run speed, and it doesn't actually put you any higher, so spamming it does nothing for you, except if you already have higher than max speed, it'll lock your speed in for a few frames, and you can use that to keep boost for long distances, as you can see here.
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive, honestly, how fast they're capable of doing.
Yeah, so here we have our first different character, pretty much, Dustworth. He has much higher jumps, he's the green character, and much larger attacks. For example, you can see here he'll be able to heavy these enemies through the floor, not have to traverse around.
Yeah, and that saves quite a bit of time, as well as he saves a lot of time by virtue of just having really great jumps.
Right.
Here's another level where they're actually going to farm super, and so you'll see them use attacks to collect dust that's not necessarily in their path. Normally in SS you use this a lot, but in any percent its uses are mostly centered around collecting dust so that they can have exactly enough to do the super at the end here.
Right, this end trigger has a bear and four turkeys, so it takes quite a while to clear normally, but a super cleans them up pretty fast.
Just because I don't think we mentioned this yet, SS being the main other category there's 2 ranks you get at the end of each level, and the max rank for each of them is the S rank, so SS is the score category that this is not what this is.
Right, SS, to get an SS, you need to not die, and you need to get all the dust in a level. So it's a lot more about just completing levels consistently, whereas this is much more about optimizing movement. If you want to watch an SSL run, there was one done at SGDQ 2 years ago, I believe, by Savade.
2016, yeah.
Yeah, it was a great run. Shout out to Savade, he's a great guy.
Yeah. So yeah, Dahlia, you get to show off using the range of the characters. They're trying to place their attacks as far as they can, and once they attack an enemy, they actually get their air charge back, which allows them to then do another action really quickly. And so that's a big part of optimization in any percent, is choosing when to attack enemies to get air charges versus just taking the slower option and using less air charges.
Yeah, even here you'll notice, even though a lot of this level is very flat, they'll go out of their way to go for boosts, mainly the ground boosts other than the slopes. And this is because in this game, it's really important to make sure you're going over max run speed. Otherwise, you're honestly not doing the levels that quickly. And here's a first spike jump in the run. You can jump off spikes that are 45 degrees by buffering a jump and holding down. Yeah.
Yeah, there's not really much to it. It's not that very difficult. Not very difficult, but extremely useful. And this is Kid, our final character that we haven't seen yet. Kid is unique in that she has multiple air charges, which allows her to do some pretty intense movement. In this Nexus, she actually is the only character capable of doing this movement, which saves quite a bit of time getting to Night Temple. Well, actually, Fresh tried to go around, actually, showing the, I guess, the other route.
Yeah.
Night Temple is one of the first big bosses of this run. It's a very difficult level. This game is separated into 4 hubs. So there's the, 6 hubs really. There's the 4 main hubs in the Nexus. There's the tutorials, which is the beginning of the run, and then there's the difficults. Each hub sort of has several tiers of levels. There are 4 tiers on each hub. You can't actually tell because the doors start open, but normally when you start this game fresh, the doors will be locked, and that will tell you how difficult the door will be.
They range from unlocked to start with, to wood, to silver, to gold. And so you'll see some of the more difficult levels a little earlier in any percent, just because we want to complete them in the fastest order possible.
Yeah. And now we're going into Summit, and talking about character choices, you'd oftentimes pick man or girl, which is the red or the blue or red character, in levels that have a lot of boosts like this because they fall the fastest. And so they can use their fall speed to transfer it forward, like with using the boost mechanic.
Right. On the other hand, on this next level, it's almost all climbing, so the green character Dustforce is easily the most optimal by a huge amount.
Yeah, it's pretty unfair for every other character.
They can't even come close to competing with Dustforce. He's like several seconds ahead of all the other characters.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of the levels where you're going to see them pick up dust along the way, even though they're really not trying to clear all the dust. They just want just enough at the end to be able to super.
Yeah.
So they route in just enough to be able to do that special attack and try to get nothing else because it wastes more time.
Yeah.
Not only is there a bear with 9 HP, which takes quite a while to clear, they don't have to climb all the way up if they have enough dust. You might see it better on Fresh's screen, but you can super the bear from fairly far away.
And this is our first clip. You'll see Fish mashing jump to get through this clip. Ooh, fell back in. That clip, there are a few clips in this game. It's very much dependent on the geometry. And you can actually pick different characters to get through this clip. Every character can do it.
Yeah. So coming up, we have our first combat level. It's just a small level with a lot of enemies, and you just have to clear them all to continue. So you'll see there are porcupines, and the porcupines shoot quills. And what happens is if you actually hit a quill and it hits an enemy, it'll insta-kill it, just regardless of how much HP it has. I think you saw it with a bear. The quill one-shot the bear even though it had 9 HP. So a lot of routing centers around making sure you deflect quills well.
Oh, I got it.
No! Oh man, I had challenged Fresh to try to get a sub 8 with Dust Kid, which would be, he's pretty much, I think, one of 2 people to ever have done it. So trying to do it in a run is pretty nuts.
Yeah. Here's Runes, and you'll notice that they're actually playing different characters. This is one of the levels that more than one character actually is competitive at the top level.
Yeah, you'll even in the top 10, which is typically we have a leaderboard system in this game. This is one of the few levels where you see multiple characters in the top 10.
Yeah. And
that actually might be a good time to bring up the leaderboard system in general. This game has an extremely active IL community, and that is largely due to the in-game leaderboard, which is extremely comprehensive. There's a great replay system, so whenever you submit a run, you can actually watch that replay later.
Yeah, and actually, segue, we actually have a modding community as well that's very active and it's really kept the community going. Yeah. And you can actually see everything down to inputs on every single frame and analyze runs like that. And actually that's really kind of brought up the level of the game a lot in recent time.
Yeah, in the last 2 years we learned so much about this game that we never knew before.
So at the end of that level, you saw both of them kind of intentionally get stuck under that totem. So we already learned about the super meter, and basically what that does is when you get hit by an enemy, you gather 5 meter for your super anyways, so it's actually faster to get to the end of that level and you just get hit a bunch.
It's very hard to get a super in that level without spending extra time. So. And here you'll see the 2 players are going to go over the level. A lot of these levels are pretty expansive, and sometimes they hide secrets above them, but in cases like this, it's actually faster to take these alternative routes.
Yeah. Part of the coolness of Dustforce is just how exploring these levels and moving around the game. This game is really, really rewarding to play. It feels awesome.
Yeah, there's a bit of a skill for it, but once you achieve movement like these 2 players have, it's incredibly satisfying even just to move around.
Yeah.
And now we go straight into Mansion. So the first hub was Forest. This will be, well, I guess the first hub was tutorials, but this is now the Mansion. So the levels are going to get easier again because we're at the early parts.
So something you just saw there from Fish, and you're going to see a lot more in the run, is he queued up a heavy attack and then exited the level before it was actually done. What happens when you exit the level is the game slows down, but it doesn't stop. So if you queue up an attack and then exit the level, it'll still fulfill the attack and hit the end trigger, so you can get a little bit ahead by exiting faster.
it actually saves a pretty significant amount of time actually over the course of the entire
Yeah,
run.
done optimally, it's 18 frames, which is about a third of a second.
Yeah, and over the course of 75 levels, that adds up for sure to almost
20-ish seconds.
yeah.
It can be a little dangerous though, because if you queue up an early exit, there's no way to cancel it. So if you queue it up and then you miss the attack, you just have to do the entire level over because there's no way to get
Yeah.
your progress back.
Yeah. And here another example of the players using two characters. This is actually very cool because you'll get to see the difference of the routes in real time. Characters oftentimes have to use their different properties in different places. Oftentimes, when you actually watch these runs, they lose time and game time in the various places. So it's pretty cool.
Something else worth noting is that we have gone through a couple different character choices from them. But something else that needs to be taken into account is even if a character isn't optimal on a level, they have to consider the nexus movement after the level. Because if there's movement to get to a different level that's easier with the character, they still might pick that character instead.
Yeah.
You'll see that come up in a bit after Ghost Parapets. We use Kid to get down to Clock Tower.
Yeah.
Observatory.
Observatory, rather, yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
Notably, Kid is still pretty good at that level. So you have to also balance that with the time lost in the level.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, we never actually introduced ourselves.
Oh yeah, we can do a roll call real quick. So the runners right now in the lead is Fresh barely in Night Hall, and the other runner with Fish. I'm TMC.
I'm Fims.
I'm Bob.
Yep.
We've all played this game a pretty large amount. Fish and Fresh obviously the most, but I think everyone here has at least 1,500 hours.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Too many.
It's
More than we'd like to
probably safe to assume over 10,000 hours between the five of us.
There's 10,000 hours between those two up there.
Yeah,
Nah,
really.
not quite.
Close. Closer than you might presume.
All right, so you'll see a death warp here on Fresh's screen. He's going to go up and trigger a checkpoint and then go back down to the start. And he's going to actually fall through a death zone, and his dead body will trigger a checkpoint further down.
Yeah, so the reason you have to do that, it seems kind of like pointless movement at the beginning, is because for some reason, if you hit a death zone without hitting a checkpoint first, the game's physics will just stop and it'll just immediately restart the level. But if you hit a checkpoint first, it'll slow down like it does with an early exit, and so your corpse is still falling and it can hit a checkpoint for you.
It's interesting too because you actually lose all your dust, and since this is a level where you need super farm, that means that the dust that you collect before the super doesn't actually matter. There are a couple other death warps in the game, although they're not used in the.
They're not quite that weird, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are faster for ILs, but not for real
Yeah.
time.
A death costs, I believe, 55
Yeah,
frames.
55 frames.
Yeah, which is a little bit less than a second. So oftentimes, if the time save is less than 55 frames, we don't go for it. And this game is optimized where we do think about saving a handful of frames in every corner.
Yeah, so a lot of the levels in Mansion are pretty long, and they play kind of gray like they look. But even though a lot of them are really just kind of flat ground, they do need to consider their movement and keep boost as long as they can.
Part of one of the great assets this game has in terms of being a super competitive platformer is that there is tons of room for movement optimization, even on levels that are just flat ground, because of ground boosts and dash rhythm really introducing a lot of difficulty to even simple actions. Difficulty maybe not the right word, but
As a spicy early exit.
Thank you.
So this level it doesn't have really any music, and the mansion is pretty long, so maybe you have time to read a donation.
Yeah, we got $100 that says, "Hey, Dust Friends, Metalama here. I'm so happy you guys get to show off this incredible game at this amazing marathon. I wish I could be there to give you support in person. Good luck on the blind slope drop in Yada."
Good joke.
Thanks, Metal.
Thank you,
Metal.
Metal.
you guys are going to go for that, right?
Doubtful.
Well, you go for Fresh, I'll do it if you do it.
Well, you guys can make that decision when we get there. We have a couple minutes.
Stun or die.
Ooh.
They are very close right now.
Yeah.
See if I can separating them, and
Yeah.
that's easily just a mistake or two.
So right side, I'm just going to say it.
Yeah. So this is what he's talking about is the strat at the end of this level. So a lot of the strats are not necessarily hard, although this one is. But hold on, let's see if Fresh gets this. Oh. But yeah, Let's
Come
see
on,
if Fish
fresh.
goes.
Oh, barely.
Both runners missing it. That is a, like I said, like we said, a very hard strat.
Yes, but not only is it hard, it only really saves about a second, but if you miss it, you lose 4.
Yeah.
So a lot of the strats, like the difficulty in this game sometimes in the runs, comes from how punishing mistakes are rather
Yeah.
than how difficult things are to execute.
Yeah, a lot of this category is measuring risk reward and trying to like minimize risk but maximize rewards out
Yeah.
of things.
So a lot of times when when runners will talk about what strats they go for, they'll say, well, if I fail it, I lose this much, and if I get it, I save this much, and I get it this often, you know, like a min-max tree. So, oh, that was interesting. I've never seen somebody not have enough dust before they got to
Yeah.
that point. Yeah, this is another level that's quite long. This is the longest level except for the last level in the run, which is a little over a minute. This run is barely under a minute. So
Pretty
it's
recently, actually, I think, right?
It's been under a minute for quite a while.
Was it under a minute with Dustforce?
Yes.
I think
yeah.
so.
There's a 57, I think.
Yeah. It's been that way since I've played the game, so.
Ah.
And Cavern's yet another level where they get to go over.
Right.
This level is kind of interesting, boosting over the top. The geometry is very, very bizarre at the top of this. It would be not the kind of thing that you would normally have to boost over. So you'll like when you actually try to go fast in this level, it's quite difficult. It's not as easy as they make it look.
And despite being actually such a different route than going through the level normally, it's actually only a little bit faster, maybe a couple seconds. And there used to be a top 10 time, I believe, going through.
Yeah. It's notable enough that almost every runner will do it, or every runner does it now, because it saves enough time.
So this level has a lot of books in it. They're enemies that are pretty annoying because they tend to follow you around and try to hit you. So a lot of times you'll see them attack them like that just to get them out of the way, because otherwise they'll just lose time getting hit by them.
Yeah. There are lots of strats around dealing with books based off of how fast you can execute things around the corner. One of the big factors for those books is actually ledge cancels, which we haven't talked about. Basically, whenever you come over a ledge in this game, you can actually dash down immediately to, as long as you've gone over the platform, you can dash down into it, and then immediately dash forward or perform another action.
Right. If you actually don't do that when you climb over, there's this sort of slow animation where the character will pop up over the ledge and then land again, which is quite slow.
Yeah. Talking about time save that adds up, ledge cancels is definitely one of the larger time saves in terms of it saves a small amount of time for each one that you do, but every one matters because it is all over the run. In fact, it's such a big part of the runs that on the leaderboards that we have online, there is a ledge cancel histogram which tells you how many frames each ledge cancel was. And so now they're both runners are now out of Mansion and going into City. City is Fish's favorite hub, beginning of City at least. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Lots
a bunch of really fast levels in a row. Early exits are fun. They look cool.
Yeah.
And you can fall downstairs.
That was a very good boost.
I like how both runners decided to take the stairs instead of taking the slope.
Yeah. And upcoming, we'll have a bunch of really quick levels, actually, you'll see.
Yeah.
And landfill clip coming up right next level.
Yeah.
Right. So we talked about clips with Grass Cave, and that was just the way the wall was shaped. You can clip through it. What they're going to do now is, the next level is there will be a dust block slope. And actually, if they light attack it or heavy attack it in a certain way, you can reveal this sort of awkward geometry that has no collision and just clip through the level. And you'll see they
Nice, first try.
Fresh got it. And Fresh
Both
gets it
runners
too.
get it. Good job.
But you also have to finish the level off screen, so there's
Yeah.
a little bit of danger there.
Yeah, you can watch the in-game timer to know when the level ends.
So one of the dangers with that level is even if you get the clip, you can't see where you're going or where the end of the level is. And in this game, there's a system with the camera where the further away you are with the camera, like things will unload so the game can run faster. And if you go too far away from the camera,
You
you
can
just
straight up
unload,
unload
and
yourself.
then you have to restart no matter what.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's funny because that clip looks really flashy and cool, but it only saves like 2 seconds.
Yeah, but everybody does it too. Yeah, it's pretty funny. And it's funny, multiple characters can do it. It's even harder for other characters to get that clip to work and be able to make it to the end. But you choose Dust Kid because she can use her multiple air charges to cover more distance while she's off screen, essentially. And Warehouse will end the early part of City. We talked about tiers of levels. They went through all the open and wood key levels of this hub first because it's just fastest. After this section, they'll be entering some of the hardest levels. The silver keys and gold keys in City are extremely difficult. It's like basically a straight 5 or so minutes of intense execution. So this will be a pretty,
Yeah, this is where the nerves really start to kick in on good pace.
yeah.
Yep. And we haven't really mentioned, but the soundtrack for this game is absolutely amazing. It's by Lifeforms. And
Yeah.
the game itself is also, I mean, of course, we love this game. And how it
Looks
how it
awesome.
feels.
Sound effects are great. It feels really good to go fast because of the whooshing sound effects.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is Fish going for this boost?
Yep.
Of course.
Oh, I kind of got it.
Got it, but didn't quite keep it, but it's probably still faster. Oh, nice one, Fresh. Now the runners are tied again. Don't worry, it's late city, it won't last.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could have a quick donation to this for rooftops.
Yeah.
Yeah. $20 from Firestorm22. Hey, Fish and Fresh. Awesome to see you guys here. So excited to Dustforce and to see this awesome race. Love you guys and good luck.
Thank you, Firestorm.
Thanks, Firestorm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Shout out to the Dustforce Discord. I know you're all listening right now and probably now making a lot of noise. This game has a really awesome community. Aside from just playing the game really fast and doing ILs, there's also a great map making community for this game. This game has an awesome in-game map making engine.
All right, here's a tough level. There is no checkpoint in this level, so you got to one-shot it.
Okay. Saved. Nice
It was
save.
a little bit sketchy, but he made it.
Not out of the woods yet, though.
Not Luffy approved.
All right.
Not Luffy
Nice.
approved, guys. Shout outs to Luffy, one of the retired players who had almost, yeah, he did have every world
Yeah,
record on a
at
level,
one point, he had every IL world record in this game.
which is nuts. There are so many. That's 150 world records. In what is a pretty competitive game.
Yeah.
But that also, I guess, shows you how deep the skill ceiling for this game is. And really, the strat development in this game is really, really amazing because of the tasking community. Shout out to these two runners, actually, for being two of the bigger tasters in the community. Really, them two and Brother Mojo doing a lot of the task work and optimizing, even sometimes coming up with creative strats and then finding out ways for humans to execute them, or like questionable ways for humans to execute them, in like the case of Server Room.
All right.
So we talked about spike jumps earlier, but Fresh did something a little while ago called a spike stand.
I'm coming up to it now.
Oh yeah, so Fish is about to do it. So basically, it's not the same as a spike jump. You're not buffering a jump, but there's just a small place where basically the spikes don't exist, and you can just stand on it.
Yeah. Upcoming on Fresh's screen, you'll see, well, after this combat level, it's probably one of the most infamous levels in this game for most players. At least before the difficulties. It's called Hideout. It's very intimidating at first. You'll see it is coated in spikes. But actually, this is probably one of the favorites of most players once you get into the game, because despite how intimidating the level looks, it's actually designed in such a way that it really takes advantage of the momentum. One of the traps in this level is that you feel like you need to stop and play it safe at every corner, but actually the best way to deal with it is to let your momentum carry you, and it plays incredibly smoothly.
Fish, that was an amazing
that was
alleyway.
amazing.
That was an amazing alleyway.
Trash can raining from the sky.
Normally they shoot trash bags, the garbage cans, but Fish actually made the garbage can himself rain from the sky.
All right, and now Fresh. Actually, there are two more levels. Sorry.
Yeah, their city is one of the levels where one of the hubs where the SS route and the any % route are kind of different. Sometimes they wind up being pretty similar. What's different about City is that you actually wind up doing these two silver key levels. Normally you'd need to beat the silver key levels in SS to be able to beat the gold keys because you need to unlock them. But since they're doing any %, they have the liberty to do the levels out of order.
That was a nice little heavy down dash by Fresh there. You can queue up a heavy attack and actually down dash while it's still winding up, and that's pretty hard to do actually because you have to change direction so fast, but he pulled one off right there at the end.
It's pretty
cool.
subtle, and it's not incredibly useful, but there are a lot of situations where it can help you line up attacks for either dust or enemies.
Should also be noted, Fresh and I take a slightly different route here. We play these levels in reverse order, or opposite order from each other.
Yeah. There are a few places where the Nexus route differs for these two runners. This is one of two. I don't know if you guys do City in this difficulties in the same order, but the other big major route difference is in the end of Labs, which is the hub that Fresh just entered. They go different routes, so Fresh will end in Core Temple and Fish will end in... Fresh will end in Dome and Fish will end in Core Temple.
Yeah, this is probably the hardest hub considered by most of the runners. Despite one of the hubs being called the difficult, this is probably the hardest one.
Yeah, there are just so many levels where you can lose time, and especially since at this point you're really nervous. By the time you get to the difficulties, you're just it's exhausting because of all of the technical things you need to do.
Yeah, there's very little downtime during this run. Just levels come after one after another.
Yeah. And that's actually pretty true for this entire game. One of the difficulties of speedrunning this game is the fact that there is basically no downtime. Because of early exits and nexus movement, you're constantly doing something, which is a good thing for running the game because it's very rewarding, but it's also extremely tiring and stressful.
There's also no auto-scrollers or anything, which is wonderful.
Yes, thank God. Thank you, Dustforce devs, for not making that mistake.
So right now, the lab might not look too intimidating because they're doing all the early, unlocked and wood key doors. But the later gold levels and the silver key lab levels are particularly hard. They're just not very friendly, either don't have checkpoints or are just really awkward and hard. So
shout out to Fims.
Oh yeah, the level Fresh is on right now, I don't really actually play any %, but I have world record on this stage and only this stage.
This is baby.
But yeah, so the levels may not look too difficult, but what's actually the difficult part is that there's extremely punishing mistakes to make. For example, dropping some of the boosts and VATs would lose you like immeasurable amounts of time. Missing the jump at the start of satellite debris wastes quite a few seconds, I think.
And there's also a lot of cycles to worry about.
Yeah.
And shout outs to Undiscovery. That was the song that was just playing. That song's the best song on the soundtrack, in my opinion.
It's up there.
Yeah, it's really good.
You might spark an argument with that opinion.
Well,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm just gonna.
Frozen hot
people can hit me
sauce
up on
is
Discord
probably
about
better.
it after the run. Don't worry.
Light pollution.
Talk to me about cider time.
Sun
and,
bleach.
That's how good the OST of this
the
game is,
magnetic
though. Like we will legit have arguments about what songs are the best because they're all so good. Yeah.
Yeah, here's another example of a punishing mistake. Fish is on security, and if you actually miss the super on the bear, you actually lose, I think, like 4 or 5 seconds.
Couple of
which is
seconds,
huge.
Yeah. Can be really pretty huge time loss.
I think we probably have time for another donation right now.
Yeah.
All right, we got $10 from Scryas. Best of luck, Fishin' Fresh. Been a while since I've gotten to run Dustforce, but we'll always support it at GDQs. Crush it, guys. Also have $75 from Junior Mints. Shout out to TMC on the couch for convincing me to watch Dustforce and donate instead of going to the gym. Best of luck on the run.
This guy's priorities straight.
Hey, I never said that you had to do that instead of going to the gym. I'm going to point that out.
I could work out to this.
Yeah, right? This game's got a good rhythm.
So right now, Fresh is heading into wiring, which is another one of the levels where the devs kind of just gave another route over top of the level. But the punishing thing about this is that there are no checkpoints up here. He's using Dustworth, which has really high jumps, and it's obviously pretty claustrophobic. So if he takes a death or something, he just has to start over, and the climb is pretty long. But
Yeah. But these players are so good that they'll still go for boost setups and try to get enough height to get good boosts, even though there are spikes that will cost them like 10 seconds if they hit.
Here's another pretty infamous level for its difficulty for new players, backup shift. It's actually pretty hard to complete even for your first time, not even not dying or getting all the dust, just because of its weird shape and how many spikes there are.
Yeah. Any percent for backup shift and the SS route for backup shift are pretty similar because there's not really like any option to go around things. But the things that they can optimize are pretty interesting. And the best example of that is actually the top of this level, which Fresh is about to get to. They're actually going to time spike jumps and then dash to time another spike jump. And that is really, really difficult. So it's very impressive they got it first try.
yeah, so something that needs to be said about that is you specifically have to buffer a jump. If you have another air charge, it doesn't really work because you're not coming down on the spikes. So you have to intentionally waste your air charges there to set those up.
Right. Here's another combat level. You get hit a lot to get your super. Let's see. This happens again later in lab, actually.
That was a very good containment. That was probably 15th, I would guess, the best containment.
So the level Fresh is going into right now, they have very differing routes and strats for this. Fresh is just going to beeline it to the end of the level and take out the bear at the end. When Fish gets to it, you'll see him do something very different. He's going to farm super like Fresh did on containment and then try to take out the bear from the other side of the wall.
And,
Strat is, yeah, go. That strat saves about a second and change, maybe more. I'm going to call it about 2 seconds. But it can be very difficult, so not all the runners do it yet. but I think eventually we'll get to the point where everybody has to do this.
Yeah,
And looks like Fish got it.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, nice.
So, ILing in this game, like full game runs, I mean, it's essentially a string of ILs with a Nexus movement in between. So more often than not, you'll see the runners actually go for basically, I mean, world record strats on a lot of the levels, or competitive strats. So it's actually very difficult, and I mean, you just gotta go fast. So
Yeah. Yeah, every strat is not trivial, honestly. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you'll see a divergence in their routes now. Fish is going to Dome early. Fresh will actually do it as the last level, but Fish's route saves a little bit of time. But
it's
it means
way
you
harder.
you have to enter and exit Dome rather than simply enter, and you can waste a lot of time if you miss this boost. It's pretty difficult.
Yeah, as soon as you die in the Nexus, you've already lost the time the route saves.
That was a very, very good any percent no difficulties from Fresh. He's on. Oh wait, sorry. I thought, my bad. I thought he ended on Core Temple.
Never mind, Fresh. Your pace is bad.
Yeah, your pace is bad. No, honestly, I was looking at the pace. I was like, that's impossible. Okay, I'm glad that was not actually the case.
It's a good run, though.
It is a good run still.
Have time for some donations?
Yeah, another donation.
Yeah, I got $50 from Pinnacle Gym. Good, gotta donate for Fresh Maniac during Dustforce. We've also got $150 from Strategism. Hello, Dust fam. Here's $1 for every level that'll be dusted today by Fresh Maniac and the Dirty Rotten Pinky Dasher.
Wow.
Wow.
I use two fingers, thank you.
I guess we never
Might
really
even talk
talked
about
about
me,
that, but the default control scheme for this game has the dash button, which you use all the time on Pinky. So some people stick with it, and they're heathens.
Some people are wrong.
Yeah.
And
Some
I'm
people
one
even
of them.
some people even play with gamepads instead of keyboards. What a bunch of weirdos.
It's very open for how you can play this game. For a while, I think Luffy, who was one of the top ILers at the time, used a controller.
Yeah.
And although both of these guys use keyboard, there are still plenty of people who use controller.
I actually started using controller, and then I switched after like 200 hours.
So Fresh is heading into the difficults. You'll see why this hub is called that in a sec. It's not really hard to explain.
Yeah, every level here is pretty much not trivial. There are a bunch of really, really tight sections and lots of places that you can die by making even like the tiniest mistake.
There are a couple levels though that are sort of like breaks. You'll see them coming up. They're quick and they're not too hard, so you got a little break in between some of the more difficult ones.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see actually.
Yeah, you'll see it on Fresh's screen. He gets pretty close to some spikes.
Yeah, it's there's one strat in this level where they fall. It's right here. Oh, that strat is extremely difficult. So we'll see if he gets it second try. Nice.
And
You also see him twice
Well, you
there.
do that.
He kind of he climbs over some spikes. That's not necessarily a glitch or anything. It's just kind of a weird way the game is programmed. The bottom left quadrant of your character just doesn't have a thing that checks for
Fish
spikes
got it
for some
first try.
reason. So
Nice.
you can kind of abuse that by lining up that area of your body with the spikes and jumping off of it.
The difficulties can also serve as an equalizer in races like this. Like Fresh entered the difficulties quite a bit ahead, but because of the Giga, now they're pretty close. This route is actually very different in an IL setting.
Here's a quick level.
Yeah.
Just throw that in there.
All right. And another quick level. Oh, no, wait, they go to Terra first.
Oh yeah, so this is Terra. So there's actually a 1 block or half block wide gap. Oh, nice, first try.
Nice.
So it's actually very difficult to get in that gap. I think it's a 3 pixel window. And,
Shout out to Fish doing it with an adjustment.
nice, yeah.
That's
But
pretty tough.
that setup you saw where they matched light was actually found by Twinkie. Shout out to him.
I'm not sure if that counted.
It did, yeah.
Okay.
Nice. Ooh. Oh no,
Get up there.
not the Nexus movement.
All right.
All right, so this is the second to last level. The final level of the run is called Yada Difficult, and it's a compilation level, basically, of all the sort of quirks of these other difficults, and it's...
It lives up to that.
Yeah, it's over a minute long in any percent, and just under 2 in SS.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think because this race is actually pretty close, and because the last level is pretty intense, we're just gonna not really say much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're going to let the racers play it out because it's probably going to come down to the wire.
yeah. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. First try, nice.
Wow.
First try from both runners, that's insane.
Is it close?
Get up there.
We're just coming up on the final climb here.
Time's gonna be soon.
Done.
Nice. And time.
That's great.
Super close race.
Nice race, guys. Thank you for not beating me with